York on this story for us. President Bush is today drawing parallels between the Iraq conflict and World War II. In his commencement address today at the U.S. Air Force Academy in Colorado, he painted both as righteous conflicts against evil. One political observer is also looking back at the Second World War and connecting it to events today. And joining us now from our studios in New York is Pat Buchanan. He's the author of a brand new book entitled Churchill, Hitler, and the Unnecessary War, How Britain Lost Its Empire and the West Lost the World. Pat, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Wolf.
You make the case that there would have been no Hitler, there would have been no World War II, there would have been no Holocaust, albeit in effect for Winston Churchill. What's the point?
Well, the point of this is obviously Hitler came out of World War I and the tearing apart of Germany. But what I am saying is, had Britain not given an insane war guarantee to Poland and then gone to war on behalf of a Poland it could not save, I don't think there would have been any war in Europe. I don't think there would have been a war against the Western democracy. And at the very least, all the Jews of Western Europe would have survived. And that's basically one of the cases we make in here.
And here's what you write on page 421. Let me read it to you. Rather than follow the wisdom of conservative men like Kennan, Eisenhower, and Reagan, we began to emulate every folly of Imperial Britain in her plunge from power. With all our braying about being the indispensable nation and bring 'em on braggadocio, we exhibited imperial hubris the whole world came to detest. You're implying that the same mistakes that Churchill made, that you suggest he made between the World War I and World War II, President Bush has been making now.
That's right. Well, what I'm saying is this. Basically, the blunders the British made in alienating allies, in pushing enemies together or rivals together and turning them into enemies, in cutting off alliances, in giving war guarantees they could not defend, the United States has been emulating itself. Just as Britain gave a foolish war guarantee to Poland, it could not honor and did not honor in the end. The United States has given war guarantees to Poland, the Baltic republics. We're thinking of giving a NATO war guarantee to Ukraine and to Georgia. Secondly, the United States is engaging in wars, I think, that are unnecessary wars.
And you speak specifically about the war in Iraq, which you think has been a horrible blunder.
I think the war in Iraq was quite clearly an unnecessary war. Saddam Hussein did not attack us, did not threaten us, did not want war with us, and we went to war with him to deprive him of weapons he did not have.
So you
it was
agree,
an unnecessary war.
You agree, Pat, with Scott McClellan, who in his new book, the former White House press secretary, writes, "What I do know is that war should only be waged when necessary, and the Iraq war was not necessary." It's not shocking to hear you say that. It is pretty shocking to hear a former White House press secretary suggest that 4,000 American troops, $600–700 billion have been squandered for nothing.
Well, you got to ask why Scott McClellan did not resign, for heaven's sakes. He said basically that the Bush White House and the others were propagandizing for war, cherry-picking information, making the case as a prosecutor would for a war in which Scott McClellan did not believe. I would wonder why a man would participate in something like that if he disbelieved in the cause and in the war, Wolf. I can't explain that. I haven't read his book, but I have read what he said.
John McCain says the United States will never surrender in Iraq. He wants to win. Can the United States do what McCain says?
I think it's possible, Wolf. There's no question about it. The surge has worked. Maliki has taken down Sadr both in Basra and in Sadr City. And there's a possibility you could have a Shia government which could deal with the Sunnis and could get dominance over the south of Iraq. I say it's possible. It may be probable. I'm not certain. But I do think this. It is far more possible now than it was in 2006 when the Iraq report came in saying we were losing the war and catastrophe impended. It doesn't impend right now.
Here, we asked our viewers to send in some eye reports. We told them you were going to be on the show, and we asked them if they had any questions. This would be a good way to pose their questions. We got this eye report from John Carroll. He says he plans to vote for Obama. Listen to his question.
I wanted to hear your thoughts on an idea I had, namely to allow every Canadian, U.S., and Mexican citizen the right to work in any of those three countries. Sort of a NAFTA labor union that would match to some degree what the Europeans are doing with the European Union.
The point being that if you live in Europe, if you're a member of the EU, you can go work in any of those countries, not a problem. He says we should do the same thing in North America.
Those European countries, against the will of many of their people, Wolf, because they're not being allowed to vote, as in Britain, are surrendering their national sovereignty, their independence. That fellow's a Canadian, as I understand it, but Americans fought and died from 1775 to 1881 in enormous numbers to make us a sovereign, independent, free republic forever. I do believe in free trade basically with Canada. I don't agree with the NAFTA agreement, but I do insist, and most Americans will insist, we maintain our sovereignty, our independence, our unique culture, language, and borders.
Let me get back to the book now, because we're almost out of time. But I want you to explain the notion that you have that Hitler would have never come to power. There would have been anti-Semitism, to be sure, but there wouldn't have been the extermination of 6 million Jews, because that's going to cause a lot of controversy, this notion that you have that, in effect, Churchill was responsible for this chain of events that led to the Holocaust.
Well, Churchill was not, Chamberlain made the decision to give the war guarantee to Poland. Here's my view, Wolf. I've read and studied Hitler. One thing he did not want was war with the British Empire. He admired it, he respected it, he never wanted war with it, he wanted to make an ally out of it. Had Chamberlain, at the goading of Churchill, not given a war guarantee to Poland, Britain would not have had to go to war on behalf of Poland. It's because Britain declared war on Germany that Germany came west. And that's the reason that Germany had basically hostages of everybody in Western Europe from the Pyrenees and in Eastern Europe to the Urals.
But Hitler had plans of exterminating the Jews in the 30s, a lot earlier.
Wolf, I have not seen any plans of extermination. Hitler went genocidal after the invasion of Russia was broken down in Russia, after he declared war on the United States, and he was looking defeat in the face. It was that point that the Swansea Conference was held, Wolf. As you know, that was in January of 1942.
But what about all the anti-Semitic laws that were passed, the Kristallnacht, all those Jews who were rounded up starting in the 30s in Germany?
Well, look, there's no doubt Hitler was anti-Semitic from the time even before he wrote Mein Kampf. What we're talking about when you mention the Holocaust, for heaven's sakes, is genocide. You're not talking about anti-Semitism. There was anti-Semitism in Poland in those years. And there's no doubt the Nuremberg laws were in 1935. They were dreadful. And as a consequence, half the Jews had left Germany before Kristallnacht, which was in November 1938. Another half fled after that. They were outside Germany when the curtain fell. Now, what Hitler did was a monstrous crime, Wolf, but it was a war crime. Had there been no war, there would have been no Holocaust, in my judgment.
All right, Pat Buchanan has written a provocative book, Churchill, Hitler, and the Unnecessary War. Pat, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, as always.